The Tata Group is an Indian large corporation with headquarters in Mumbai. It is the biggest conglomerate in India and was founded in 1868. It has activities in 100 nations across 6 continents and sells goods and services in over 150 nations. Their automobile division, Tata Motors Limited, a $37 billion organization, is a leading global automobile manufacturer with a portfolio that covers a wide range of vehicles. But its influence goes much beyond that one subsidiary. And today, we're going through 3 generations of Tata businessmen to see how they created India's most massive businesses. The British Empire was in power when Tata's story started. India was a major cotton exporter at the time, but the British East India Company government left little chance for local businesses to flourish. Their dominance was eventually abolished and replaced by the British Raj in 1857. In contrast to its brutal predecessor, the Raj was now considerably more concerned with maintaining peace. The Raj invested heavily and did not abuse the Indian public that much. The Raj invested in railroads in India. They were still an oppressive colonial force, of course, but at least they finally provided the native population with the means to advance economically. One of the first Indian businessmen was Jamsetji Tata, who emerged from the exporting industry because India was an exporting nation. He graduated in 1858, just in time to benefit from the British Raj economic reforms. In 1859, Jamsetji traveled to Hong Kong to establish a subsidiary since his father's export business was expanding. When he arrived, he was astounded by the volume of British trade. He understood the potential of the Tata Export Company on a genuinely global scale. He would visit China, Japan, and the UK over the course of the following 10 years in order to build a distribution network for his father's company. He established his own exporting business in 1868, and with the proceeds, he began constructing his own textile factories, thereby building a vertically integrated firm business. Jamsetji's concept was to locate the best techniques of employment around the world and bring them back to India. He implemented practices in his textile mills that were essentially unknown to the majority of India, like providing sickness benefits and pensions to his workers. Jamsetji, however, wasn't satisfied with merely the textile sector. He was inspired by the wonders the Industrial Revolution had produced in Europe and wanted to bring them to his own country. In 1901, he started working on a steel manufacturing facility that was based on those he had visited in Germany. His hydroelectrical proposal was influenced by his trip to the Niagara Falls Power Facility in 1903. After realizing the immense potential of tourism, Jamsetji established a chain of hotels, beginning with the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, one of Mumbai's most recognized structures even today. Jamsetji really appreciated education to the extent that he donated land and buildings to the establishments of the Indian Institute of Science. He died in 1904 while on a business trip in Germany, leaving his 2 sons with the already substantial Tata Company. When they combined efforts, they created a single holding company, which in turn is owned by the philanthropic trust they established for upcoming generations. The sons of Jamsetji accomplished many of their father's goals, including establishing India's first steel mill in 1907, its first cement plant in 1912, and its first insurance firm in 1919. By the time the following generation assumed leadership in 1938, Tata's sons had grown to include 14 distinct businesses. But this time, instead of going to one of Jamsetji's grandsons, the reins of power were given to a distant cousin with a fascinating background. It was Jehangir Tata, also known as JRD, who had been with the company since 1925 and grew up in France and had a close relationship with the first person to fly across the English Channel. JRD had a passion for aviation and became India's first pilot in 1929. Developing an airline was obviously his first significant project at Tata. He founded the Tata Air Service in 1932. At first, it just flew mail, but during World War II, it also carried passengers. You would think that the 1947 Declaration of India's independence would have been favorable to the Tatas, but the truth is, the newly established government's socialist goals were in opposition to the interests of the private sector. When India's first Prime Minister realized how prosperous JRD had been with his airline, he made the decisions to nationalize it on his own in 1953. As you can guess, the firm only went downhill from then, drowning in ever-increasing debt. He kept JRD as the airline's chairman until 1977. JRD would not permit politics to interfere with business, so he tried to expand Tata while avoiding the socialist fury. He founded Tata Motors in 1945 with the intention of constructing locomotives. But in 1954, he expanded into the production of commercial vehicles by forming a joint venture with a German automaker business, Daimler. JRD oversaw the growth of the Tata Group from 14 to 95 firms during his 52 years in office. But in order to do so, he had to drastically reduce the percentage of ownership Tata's sons held in each company in order to win over the socialists. Even though Tata was far from a monopoly, the Indian government created the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act in 1969 with Tata in mind by Western standards. JRD began to lose control as the group grew and its ownership in the individual companies dropped. And that's where this man came into the picture. Ratan Tata was the person sent to make improvements to some of the businesses since they were underperforming. He joined the Tata Group in 1962 and is one of Jamsetji's great-grandchildren. In 1971, Ratan was assigned responsibility for Nelco, a Tata firm that was in financial trouble. Nelco had been India's top radio manufacturer in the 1950s. But 20 years later, it had only a 3% market share. Instead of trying to save the radio, Ratan sponsored the creation of new products like satellite communications because he was more concerned with technology and the future. This helped Nelco in the 1980s and made Ratan the presumed JRD replacement. Ratan assumed control of the Tata Group in 1991. India eventually entered the global capital market once the socialists were ousted from office. But this posed a serious danger to Tata. Ratan was forced to reassume control over all of the Tata enterprises, which wasn't cheap. In order to purchase shares in the Tata companies, particularly Tata Steel and Tata Motors, he sold 20% of Tata's son's holding firm. He divided hundreds of subsidiaries into 7 main sectors, created a structure along which he could truly exert authority over them. Ratan's resolution, however, was brilliant. He began acquiring foreign rivals and absorbing them into the Tata Group, effectively buying all of their talent, supply chains, and experience in order to strengthen and expand his business back home in India. But simply wielding power isn't enough to turn around a struggling business internationally. When Ratan's beverage company, Tata Tea, bought the British Tetley brand in 2000, his shopping spree officially began. Ratan eventually acquired hundreds of businesses for pretty much every Tata Group company during the ensuing 10 years. Most notably, he paid $12 billion to purchase the European steel giant Chorus in 2007. And then 2008 saw the $2 billion purchase of Jaguar Land Rover. As you can expect, the foreign shopping spree has benefited Tata, and the majority of their income originates from sources outside of India. Even more stunning is the fact that the bulk of Tata's subsidiaries is publicly traded businesses.